First thing I wanted to show you was the soil left from making the soil blocks, which I just kept hold of thinking, well, I'll rehydrate it and I can use it again or carry on using it. But when I came to look at it, I thought it was very interesting. It's actually really very solid. It breaks up nicely because it's got lots of perlite in it. But I was amazed how solid these blocks were, which bodes really well for how the soil blocks hold together. And even after all this time, and none of this has been watered, it's still really nice and moist. Really good. Very impressed. So let's take a look at my soil block sowings and see what they look like. So here are the soil blocks, and I can see 3 that haven't germinated. 1, 2, 3, 4. But I've got to say, they've generally germinated really well. I can't see too many weed problems from having used garden soil. And in terms of their strength and rigidity, that looks really good. And if I turn it over, I can't see any roots on that one, but they're certainly holding together. And the smaller ones, interesting, not quite so successful. It looks like the roots struggled to get into the soil blocks. They seem to have germinated. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 have germinated there, but you do seem to be struggling to penetrate into the block, and that is coriander. And I think I'm going to take the ones that are working and put them into a larger soil block just to follow through. And this one, which was the celeriac, yep, they're just starting to germinate, and I'm not surprised. I've taken celeriac indoors to try and get them to germinate currently, so the fact that these are taking longer, it's not really a problem, and they've certainly got some roots going on, so I'll keep those going for a little bit longer. And I think I'll take the ones out that have succeeded here and put them into the larger blocks. So at the moment, I'm thinking straight into a larger block seems to be the favoured approach. Jury's out on this. We'll see. Well, I've mixed up my old soil mix and rehydrated it. It's come together really well, nice and firm, and it does drop some water when you squeeze it, just, which is, I think, better than I had it before. I've plunged my first set of blocks, and I'm using the different block end so that I can put squares into the blocks. So this is my tray that I'm using, and let's see if we can make some with squares in the top. There we go, and that looks pretty perfect. So the idea now is that I can put these smaller squares in those so that it receives it, and let's see how well these hold together. Yep, that works really well. And that coriander has got a pretty proud root, which I think is probably not ideal. We're going to drop that one just straight in, and I've got a couple more that look like they're ready. That one's split apart. In it goes. And I think that's about it for germinated ones. So there's one more there, so we'll put him in that end one. So I would say this is pretty fiddly with these small blocks. I really am favouring the large blocks. I don't think anything that I've got left in here is going to be usable, so I'm going to make some more of those larger blocks and then sow some coriander straight into them. I think that's the plan. There we go. So that's a 4 by 5, 20 blocks with coriander in, and I've used the coriander that was in the small blocks on close examination, all the seeds are splitting and starting to germinate. It just seems a lot slower than I expected. So these 8 here are spare. I'll drop something into those shortly. But I would say that soil blocks as a principle for me are good when it comes to these large blocks, and I'm thinking I'm going to use quite a bit more of that. But this small block system is just a bit fiddly, so I think this is well worth it. But I suppose we'll see how we get on in the long term. As an interim assessment, I'm enjoying this and I'm not enjoying this, so we'll see. What is there to prick out and pot on at this stage? Well, we've got some kale Nero de Toscano, the Cavolo Nero style kale. So there's 4 of those. In fact, there's a couple of doubles there, so there might be 5 or 6. There's the original shallots, which I started in the house, and they're ready for pricking out and potting on. And because there weren't many of those, and I was getting a bit anxious, I sowed a few more, and I sowed those in the polytunnel, and they've come on just fine. So I think I'll be potting a few of those on. And then we've got copious amounts of onions. I've not actually potted on any Ailsa Craig yet, so I'll give those a go. That's more Ailsa Craig. And we've got Bedfordshire Champion there, which I've already done a lot, and Globo, which I've already done a lot. So we'll put those to one side for now. And then I'm going to push out these lobelia from this very small tray and pot those on a bit further. So plenty to do. Well, that felt productive. I used the large rooting tray that I put the onion sets in, moved the onion sets over, and then just put the Ailsa Craig in the back. And I used some, well, once used compost for them, because I've got plenty of onions. It seems a shame to use brand new compost when I've got spare. And I also managed to pot up, or prick out and pot up, the Cavolo Nero cow and the lobelia from the Charles Dowding tray. That's gone in okay. I'm sure they'll come through. So that was pretty good. And we've got ourselves a good tray of zebrune. And zebrune can be a bit of a faff, but these seem to have come on all right. That's some grown in the polytunnel and some grown at home, but they're fine. That's all worked out well. Well, it has been a relaxing afternoon. I do enjoy potting things along, and I'm pretty much on top of it at the moment. So, quite pleased. Well, it's time to cover up again. Another below 0 night. In fact, there's about 2 or 3 nights to go that are all below 0. So we certainly aren't out of the cold weather yet, but we'll keep covering up. Seems to be working out. Tackle these 2 nets today. They've always been a bit of a problem. I'll show you what I mean. So they've never quite gone down to the base, and of course it's just because I've made it a bit too high, and this should be fairly easy to adapt. The main thing is getting this wooden post a bit shorter. I need to take about 3 or 4 inches off. Same here, and this one doesn't have a post. It just stands up on its own, but I do need to make sure that these blue plastic hoops will go down a bit further as well. So that's an hour's work. See how we get on. Gives me a fighting chance against our feline friends. Although these boards, they are really getting a bit rotten now and quite difficult to manage. So I can see me replacing those perhaps next season. but at least the nets now get down to ground level, so shouldn't have too many feline visitors. Well, my sweet peas have got up to a good height now. These are my saved seed from last year and they really look green and lush. But now's the time just to pinch out the tips, and that encourages them to grow more bushy from the base, which is exactly what I want. So I'm just going to take the tips out of all of these in the interest of bigger, bushier sweet peas. Well, I'll set those back in the cold frame and give them a good water. Whilst it's been very cold, it's very drying at the moment. It's easy to be caught out not watering. It's a fine line because if you water and then it freezes, it doesn't do the plant any good. So if you're going to water, make sure there's plenty of sunshine left in the day. But you do need to. Exactly the same goes for the polytunnel. It might be freezing cold at night, but it's easy to forget that the temperature 33 at the moment, and therefore you've got to water. So water early and then give them the best chance to dry out before the night freezes. So on we go. Job done. Exactly the same goes for container plants. Just make sure they don't dry out. Look at these tulips. Fantastic. I do hope you enjoyed the video today. If you did, click the subscribe button, click the like button, and if you want updates from me each time I upload a video, click the bell and select all. I do hope you have a great day. Diolch yn fawr.